This video is a quick overview of the PIR Facilitator responsibilities and information. It is not intended to be the full comprehensive set of information. You should be seeing the same document that I'm illustrating here, but I'm going to basically touch base on a number of items that are specifically needing extra attention. But please make sure that you read through this entire document as a PIR facilitator so that you understand what your roles and responsibilities are. First of all, thanks for coming forward with your ideas for training and professional learning for Great Falls Public Schools. I know I mention every year how wonderful a job that our teachers do and our staff do to provide ongoing and job-embedded professional learning. It's a huge cost saving for our staff members who normally would have to go off and pay their own money for travel and lodging, as well as their registration fees to various conferences throughout the summer and throughout the year, which I know many teachers in the state of Montana as well as across the country have to do. Great Falls Public Schools is dedicated to providing these professional learning opportunities and at least giving you the opportunity to do this within the school district as well as within Great Falls and in our building, so you have less travel time. We do sponsor and do provide PIR for out-of-district events on a limited basis, also special requests, but for what you guys do to come forward and to offer PIR is a great benefit to our staff, again making Great Falls Public Schools an employer of choice. With that said, we do have limitations in budget, and we always try to be most efficient with taxpayers' money, and obviously trying to keep the cost down as much as possible. So what you see in these outlines are based upon two major things. One, it's based upon accreditation law, what is acceptable and what we have to do as a state provider of professional learning, and we have to make sure that we meet all of these guidelines in order to be a provider of professional development that could qualify for the Office of Public Instruction's renewal units and being a credit renewal unit provider. The other piece of this obviously is just for best practice, and so you're going to see a number of things in here which is just to make sure that everyone's on the same guidelines so that we can have some consistency in decision making, and so then that way there isn't a lot of chaos and making sure that there's no bias in decisions when it comes to allowing PIR for various events and not others. So we have to have consistency, and that's what these guidelines and rules do provide for us. So first of all, on the main page, this is just a quick overview, some bulleted points to help you go through and identify, have you completed these particular processes in your action as a PIR facilitator. And obviously I won't read through this word for word, but again, did I, for example, sign up for my own class if I want PIR? Well, credit for myself. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But a couple of things that deal with your main responsibilities is going to be make sure you communicate directly and often with your participants, especially for those of you who have multiple sessions. It's always important to keep constant communications going, especially as it's spread out. For those of you who have single day types of sessions, yes, it's important for communications leading up to that and then shortly after, but obviously you don't have as long of a time frame to take care of. But make sure you send that email reminder 1 week prior to class. Those of you in the summertime, it's probably good to send a couple of reminders just by a good practice, only because, as we know, people may not be checking their emails every day. They might be on vacation. So I would even recommend a couple weeks ahead of time and then send an additional reminder the week before, only because we know things can happen. People forget they've signed up for things, but it's important for that they will remember and have a couple opportunities to remember that they do have something coming up. accommodate those on the waiting list if possible. We're dealing with some issues in the system, in the computer software that will help us with this process. But if you run into any issues where you do have a waiting list and you have any questions, just contact my office, because we do know that the software system has some limitations and it isn't working entirely like we hope it would for the waiting list. But they are working on some software bug fixes for this, and hopefully we'll have this resolved. But if you do have a waiting list, again, accommodate those on the waiting list as a first come first served basis. So you should really look at when people have registered, and if you do have somebody who's on the waiting list and you end up getting a couple spots, you have 6 people on the waiting list but you have 3 spots, the consistent plan is to make sure you take the 3 who registered first, and there is information in the system about the time and date of registration. Don't just go in there and randomly select, because then you put yourself at risk for being accused of favoritism. And so that does happen, and we have had some of those things come up in past years, so don't put yourself into that situation. The break time is always a question. Again, we have a quick more information later, but a quick little statement here. Give one 15-minute break for a 3-hour class, none for shorter classes. Lunchtime is not counted as class time, even if eaten on site. So we'll talk more about those in a minute. Again, the best rule is use your professional judgment. But basically, we have to meet accreditation in this contact time. And so if there are too many minutes of break time involved in your schedule, then what it may end up happening is we may lose the ability to be able to give the number of hours we wanted to for your session. The big piece has, once you have your sign-in roster sheet for the date, has everyone signed in. That's a very important piece. We need to have a physical signature from your participants for each session, for each day. And so this is very important when we start running into situations where somebody doesn't get credit because they did not sign on particular days. A lot of times we've had people come back and say, no, we were there, I was there, I just forgot to sign, and then we get in a situation at the end of the year where we're not giving them their PIR hours, and then they're upset, and there's not much we can do because we have to hold the line on that within reason. And again, just make sure you're reminding people throughout your session at the beginning as well as the end to make sure they sign the roster sheet. And it needs to be a signature, not just check marks. It has to be a signature that is representative of their actual signature. And the state can check those things. They can look at signatures if they get audited. We get teachers audited every year on their OPI renewal for their renewal for their licensure. And the state can check these things. They have digital signatures on file for teachers when they sign their licensure renewals. So this is not a thing that is something we can get around. Any teachers outside of GFPS or non-teachers who want credit, they will need to provide to us their address. We can get it to them. And again, we do have some teachers from out of district who do attend, also some substitutes who do attend PIR within our districts. Provide the time record sheet for classes that are offered by pay. Again, very few are offered by pay, and it has to be something really dealing with a grant or a special circumstance. So if you're in that situation, you'll know about it ahead of time. So if somebody comes to you and you have no other prior knowledge of the fact that your PIR is being offered for pay, and somebody asks you about it, the answer is probably no. I mean, there's no question about it. You would know ahead of time if yours is being offered for pay. The other thing is we run into all the time is we have people saying, oh, well, how much is this worth? We've had some situations where people will hear something, maybe a side conversation about college credit, and then in their mind they heard, oh, well, this was worth 12 credits and not only 6, but the session's only offered for 6. Make sure you are very clear with people and they understand how many hours they're getting for that particular session. So provide that time record if it is available, but if not, you don't have to worry about it. Turn in your signed record sheet and attendance sign-in sheet. So the two most important things you need to remember is, obviously I already mentioned the attendance sign-in sheet. We need to have the actual original provided to us. but then also your time record sheet. So if you and your group, if you're doing it as a group, you guys need to turn in your signed time record sheets to us as well, so that you can get paid. With anytime we have a delay in those, or if something's not done appropriately, then it will delay a number of different things that need to be in place. And then here's a quick list of procedures for more in-depth explanations. Again, if you're sending out your email reminder, in that email ask them to drop the class if they're no longer available. Again, that makes that waiting list available, spots for that people on the waiting list available for them. Let's talk about this then as far as breaks in more detail. You are allowed one 15-minute break per 3-hour class. No breaks for less than 3 hours, or else break time must be added at the length of the class. And they give you an example here. But also lunchtime is not included in class time. Even if you guys sat down and said, hey, we want to get out a little bit earlier tomorrow, bring your lunches and we'll just do a working lunch. No, we in that situation we have to give them at least a 30-minute break. We do have situations where people need a break, and because this is considered work time, it is professional development time, but it is part of a contractual agreement. And so what ends up happening is somebody could file a grievance that they did not have the ability to have a break. And so there's a whole lot of things that could be filed against you as a facilitator and us as a district if we don't hold true to these. And so even if you say, hey, we're gonna kind of shorten up the lunch break today, what the recommendation on a full day is give them an hour so that people can go off site. But if you do an on-site lunch, then basically we say give them 30 minutes, which does not count into the time. So you could essentially free up a half an hour of a full day session, but I wouldn't say a full hour. So make sure that your participants understand that you guys could do an on-site paper bag lunch or whatever, but that does not shorten the whole hour. They still need to have 30 minutes. And then what happens if I'm doing 2-hour session, 2-hour blocks? Can't I give people a break? Try not to schedule it in there, and just tell people, use your professional judgment and say, we're all adults here. If you need to go take a quick break, then please step out and do so. If you're but that's if people are constantly getting up and taking a break and then getting up and checking their phones, and we've got that where we're actually helping sponsor that, then they're losing contact time, and we can get in trouble with being a provider of those hours and those minutes with the state. So do that on a very limited basis. The other piece here, if you have a waiting list and accommodate that waiting list, please let them know. And especially if you have people, they might call you up a day ahead of time and just say, hey, can I show up? You make the judgment on that if you have room, but we know some of our sessions don't have room, especially like in computer labs and stuff. You should be able to go in and print the attendance sheet. There's a video available for that that I know that is available here for you, so you need to go out and watch that one, but make sure you print that attendance sheet, 1 copy for each day. Don't just have them sign multiple days or multiple sessions on that same sheet. We need to be able to see different days with different sheets so that we can keep them separate, so that there's no question whether or not somebody was there on that particular day. Turn in the sign-in sheet and time record sheet, as we already mentioned, but leave your hours left blank, because then what Theta will do is she'll split it up. If there's multiple members within your group that are getting paid, she might ask you guys if you are wanting to do PIR, so she'll adjust those as needed. Again, request course evaluations from Theta if you want them. Everybody is required to do their evaluations and in order to get their credit, and so once they have done that, once we have the majority or all of the people who have attended get those evaluations, those can be available to you. Theta has to do some work to clean up the data, but she can get that data out to you within probably a couple weeks after the session. Classes are archived, and so sometimes you may not be able to access the rosters to get things to be double checking things and everything else. So just know that there's a certain amount of time after the session is done that things will be over. All right, logging in. These are all different things that are out there on other videos. Keeping your rosters, again, just kind of look at this document. Gives you some pretty straightforward information on how to do these things. You're putting the number of hours that they've attended here. Just create your own column, and in the future we'll have our own column. And then these are the accreditation rules. Look them over. If you have any questions, please contact me. The big one is makeup classes. You are not obligated to do makeup classes. So if you have any other questions, please give my office a call.